If I could go back and speak to my younger self, sit him down and look him in the eyes, and hand him everything I've learned over the past 60 years, this video would be that conversation. It's taken me decades of failure, decades of getting back up just to fall again, of chasing the wrong people and losing myself in distraction, of heartbreak, regret, silence, and quiet victories no one ever saw. And in the middle of all that chaos, I found something, not through comfort, but through pain. Not by being liked, but by being alone long enough to finally hear my own voice. So I'm giving you all this knowledge now. 6 Stoic life lessons that cost me everything. My friendships, opportunities, illusions I held on to. But in the end, they gave me something far greater. They gave me my true self. These lessons didn't come from school or anything mundane. They were earned in fire, through repetition and hard work. And if you let them sink in, they'll change you into the best version of yourself. By the time this video ends, you won't just think differently. You'll see things differently. You'll feel a shift within you. You'll gain a calm power, clarity, and a keen sense of purpose and direction. So stay with me all the way through. And I promise you this, you'll walk away with a mind that's unshakable, and a spirit that finally remembers who it was always meant to be. Let's begin. The first lesson was that I suffered more in my mind than in reality. When I was younger, my mind was a battlefield. I worried about everything. What people thought of me, whether I was good enough, whether the woman I loved would stay, or whether I'd fail. I rehearsed disaster like it was a daily ritual. And the irony? Most of those fears never even came true. But I still suffered. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And I didn't just read that, I lived it. I remember lying awake at night, creating scenarios in my head that drained me. Conversations that hadn't happened, failures that hadn't occurred, heartbreaks that didn't even exist outside my imagination. But still, I felt them. My body reacted as if they were real. My heart would race. My chest would tighten. I'd spiral into moods that didn't match my reality, because my thoughts became louder than truth. One day it hit me. I was walking home, mind racing as usual, thinking about everything that could go wrong. Then I stopped, looked up at the sky and took a breath. I asked myself a question that would slowly change everything. What's actually real in this present moment? Not in the future, and not in my fears. I was breathing. I wasn't in danger. No one was attacking me. And most of what I feared wasn't even happening. From that moment, I started training myself. Every time I got caught in the loop, I'd stop and breathe. I would try to return to the present and ask myself, is this within my control? If the answer was no, I released it. If the answer was yes, I took action. Little by little, the noise in my head got quieter. I found moments of stillness. Moments where I wasn't obsessing over what could go wrong. Moments where I was just here. And in those moments, I found peace. Here's the truth most people don't realize. Your mind doesn't care if something is real or imagined. It will react the same way. That's why fear can paralyze you, even when you're perfectly safe. That's why anxiety can hijack your peace, even when nothing is wrong. But the moment you become aware of this, you reclaim your power. So if you're overthinking something right now, pause. Ask yourself, is this actually happening? Or am I just suffering from my imagination? You don't have to believe every thought. You don't have to suffer twice. Let me know in the comments. What's one thing you've been overthinking that hasn't even happened yet? Because once you see it clearly, you will no longer be trapped by it. Let's move on to the next part. Lesson number 2. I learned the power of silence. I used to waste so much energy trying to explain myself. If someone misunderstood me, I'd bend over backwards to clarify. If someone questioned my intentions, I'd go into full defense mode. I thought that if I just said the right thing, if I just explained it well enough, people would see the truth. They'd see I was a good man. But I learned the hard way. The more I talked, the less I was respected. People don't always want understanding. Sometimes they just want control. And when you rush to explain, you give it to them. I remember one particular day like it happened yesterday. I was at a gathering, a work function actually. Everyone was relaxed, laughing, chatting. Then out of nowhere, a guy I barely knew took a shot at me. A subtle dig at my character, disguised as a joke. The kind of comment that stops conversations. Everyone went quiet. I felt my chest tighten. The old version of me would have jumped in immediately, defended myself, justified everything, tried to keep the peace. But something in me shifted. I looked at him, and I just smiled. Didn't say a word. That silence, it shook him. He fumbled his next sentence, trying to backtrack. People noticed. And for once, I didn't feel weak for staying silent. I felt powerful. That's when I truly understood what the Stoics meant. Be silent until it's time to speak. Silence isn't submission. It's strategy. It puts the weight back on the person who throws stones. Most people talk to prove something, but when you've got nothing to prove, silence becomes your sharpest weapon. Now, I don't explain myself unless it's necessary. I don't defend my soul to people who've already made up their minds. And I sure as hell don't waste breath on those who feed off reaction. Because if someone needs noise to feel powerful, your calm silence becomes their mirror. It reflects their insecurity, and that's what truly disturbs them. I speak with purpose now. I choose my words the way a swordsman chooses where to strike. Not often, but when I do, it lands. And here's what I've found. The quieter I became, the more people started to listen. Not because I demanded it, but because I no longer gave my energy to nonsense. Write this down. Speak less. Mean more. Let your presence talk much louder than your mouth. Lesson 3. Walking alone changed me. There was a time in my life when everything collapsed. My job was gone. The relationship I thought would last forever ended overnight. And the friends I assumed would stand by me, they disappeared without a word. One day, I looked around and realized it was just me. I had no one to call, and no one called me. No one asking how I was holding up. And I'll be honest, it was brutal. The silence was deafening. The loneliness felt like it was crushing me from the inside. But what I didn't know at the time was that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. When you have no one to lean on, you're forced to lean inward. And that's exactly what I did. I started reading meditations every night. At first, just a page or two, then whole chapters. These words didn't just comfort me, they challenged me. They taught me that I wasn't broken. I was being refined. I began journaling, writing down every fear, every thought, every question. And through those words, I started to see who I really was. I trained in silence. Just me, facing my own darkness, one day at a time. And slowly, I discovered a power I never had before. I discovered the power of self-trust and self-mastery. I wasn't who I used to be, and I wasn't trying to become anyone else. I was just becoming the best version of myself. That's the thing no one tells you. Loneliness isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's a sacred space where transformation happens, where the noise stops, and your real voice finally gets heard. That version of me, born in the quiet, raised in the dark, was stronger, calmer, clearer, because he didn't need validation. He earned his worth alone. So if you're in a season of isolation right now, don't run from it. Don't distract yourself just to fill the silence. Sit in it and experience all the emotions it comes with, because that's where you meet your highest self. And once you meet him, no one can ever take him away from you again. Lesson number 4. I no longer obey my emotions. There was a time I let my emotions steer the wheel. I didn't think. I reacted without thought, especially when I felt disrespected. I once destroyed a meaningful friendship in a single moment of anger. A friend I had known for years said something I misinterpreted. It stung. I felt betrayed and humiliated, so I snapped and said words that cut deep. Not because they were true, but because I wanted to hurt him back, to make him feel what I was feeling. He walked away, and even though I apologized days later, it was never the same. The trust was gone. The bond was fractured. That moment stayed with me, not as a badge of pride, but as a reminder of what happens when emotion becomes your master. That's when I turned deeper into Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I began to train myself, not to suppress what I felt, but to observe it without reacting. Now, when I'm angry, I delay my reaction, not because I'm weak, but because I've seen what rash decisions can destroy. When I'm hurt, I breathe. I give the pain space without letting it decide my next move. Because here's what I've learned. Emotions aren't evil. They're messengers trying to tell you something. They show up to reveal something, but they're not qualified to lead. If you let them drive, they'll take you straight into regret. You'll say things you don't mean, break things you can't repair, burn bridges you might one day need. Power isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling everything, and still choosing what deserves your reaction. There's a kind of peace that comes from restraint, a calm that builds inside you when you stop being a slave to every impulse. And that calm is deadly in the best way, because no one can provoke you anymore. Listen to this closely. You don't have to attend every emotional fire your mind invites you to. The world wants a reaction from you, but a man of discipline and clarity chooses when, how, and if he'll respond at all. That's real strength. That's control. In a world addicted to emotional outbursts, this is what will set you apart from the rest. The fifth lesson: not everyone should get access to your time. There was a time in my life when I thought being a good man meant being endlessly available. If someone needed help, I was there. If someone needed a favor, I didn't ask questions. I'd drop what I was doing, even if it cost me time, energy, or peace. I believed that kindness was about showing up for everyone no matter what, and for a while that felt noble. But over time, I started to notice something was off. I was exhausted, not just physically but emotionally. I'd show up for people over and over, and when I needed support, they vanished. It wasn't just disappointing, it was revealing. I remember one moment that made it all clear. A close friend had hit a rough patch, lost their job, went through a breakup, and leaned heavily on me during that time. I gave him my full attention for weeks. Late night calls, constant encouragement, even covering a few of his bills. I didn't expect anything in return, but not long after, I hit my own low. Something personal, something heavy. I reached out, just looking for someone to talk to. He didn't respond to the message, and didn't bother to return my calls either. And it wasn't anger that hit me, it was clarity. That moment made me realize how many people I had allowed into my life who only showed up when it was convenient for them. They didn't value me. They valued my availability. So I changed. It didn't happen overnight, but I was intentional with my actions from that point on. I started protecting my energy like it mattered, because it does. And not just from strangers, but even from the people I once believed would never take advantage of me. I no longer explain my boundaries. I don't make long speeches about why I need space, or why I'm not always available. I just decide who gets access to my time, and who doesn't. Not out of bitterness, but out of respect, for myself, and for the peace I worked so hard to build. It's not about cutting people off to prove a point. It's about recognizing who contributes to your growth, and who keeps pulling from your reserve. And once you see it clearly, there's no unseeing it. You can still be kind and care deeply. But that doesn't mean you have to say yes to everyone. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. The people who truly value you will honor your boundaries. They'll respect your time. And the ones who don't, they were never meant to stay. Part 6. What I tolerated almost ruined me. I once stayed in a relationship far longer than I should have. Not because it was good, but because I kept convincing myself it could be better. I tolerated the same disrespect over and over, the same dismissive tone, the emotional games, the lack of appreciation, and I kept making excuses. She's just going through something. She'll change once things calm down. If I'm just more patient, more supportive, and more forgiving, then she'd love me. But no matter how much I gave, nothing changed. Not the way she spoke to me, or her lack of effort. The truth is, she didn't need to change. I did, because the moment I tolerated what I once swore I never would, I sent the world a message. This is what I'm willing to accept. And what you tolerate becomes your standard. If you tolerate betrayal, you'll start calling it a mistake. If you tolerate disrespect, you'll start wondering if maybe you deserve it. And if you tolerate being treated like an option, you'll forget that you were ever meant to be a priority. I didn't lose my self-worth all at once. I gave it away piece by piece. Every time I let something slide. Every time I stayed silent just to avoid an argument. Every time I chose peace with them over peace within myself. But one day, it wasn't even a dramatic moment. Just a quiet realization. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized who I'd become. A man drained and diminished. That's when I whispered to myself something that changed everything. Never again. And I meant it. From that day forward, I raised my standards, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. I stopped begging for effort. I stopped giving third chances to patterns, not people. I stopped confusing emotional chaos with passion. And here's what happened. My life began to rise to the level of my standards. Better relationships, stronger friendships, more peace, more clarity, more confidence. Because when you stop tolerating what breaks you, you start becoming who you were always meant to be. So if you're stuck in something right now, a relationship, a friendship, a job, that chips away at you, ask yourself honestly, am I tolerating this because it's right? Or because I'm afraid to start over? You don't have to burn everything down, but you do have to stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. And if you take nothing else from this entire video, remember this. I don't chase peace anymore. I protect it. Let me leave you with this. 60 years of living. 60 years of wins and losses, love and loneliness, noise and silence. And these 6 truths, they've stayed with me. I learned them from sleepless nights, broken promises, and rebuilding myself brick by brick. From becoming the man I never thought I'd have the strength to become. So if any of these hit home for you, don't just nod along. Act on it. Even a small change today can alter the entire trajectory of your future. Drop your favorite lesson in the comments. You never know who's reading and who needs it. And if this spoke to your soul, subscribe to Stoic Clarity. Because here, we don't just talk about philosophy. We embody it. This isn't just a video. It's a turning point. Now walk forward, with strength, with silence, with clarity, and let the next 60 years be forged by your own fire.